Because some people, their truths, they can have vested interest in them and their perspectives being accepted.
The only truth.
Yeah, I get that. Because
Welcome everyone to another adventure into reality. Today I'm joined by Albert from Quantum Stones. Welcome Albert, how you doing today?
I'm doing terrific, Andrew. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Today we're going to be talking about crystals, Kirlian photography. Tell us how you got started with stones.
Well, it's interesting. My background is actually working for a major corporation since I was 18 years old. And my background is in engineering. So I was your typical individual with, you can say, a left brain heavily influenced background. Mm-hmm. And I could never see myself involved with crystals at that time. So as life progressed, when I was in my 30s and 40s, something pulled me deeply to be involved in the mineral kingdom itself. So that's when I started with clay. I felt that I wanted to clean up my body. I wanted to understand how minerals affect the body. And it was just instinctive. It was like this pulling feeling that I needed to understand, study, and be involved with clay as a way of detoxifying the body. And what I've discovered from using clay is all the wonderful benefits that minerals have internally, because it's the foundation of health to a certain degree, because most people don't think that the mineral kingdom has any credence in their life, but we're affected by it every day, and everything that we put in our body, whether it's plants, whether it's you're drinking milk or water, you're getting minerals induced into your system. And I wanted to understand what those minerals did in my body. So to make a long story short, I think I studied for about 2 years the effects on clay with the body, and also how I could help other people understand and benefit from using clay, which my first website was called spiritdetox.com, and it did really well. It's still up and running, and it's one of the foundations to me starting in the next phase of getting more into the crystals on how it affects you from an external, not so much internal, but external part of life.
Beautiful. What I've noticed from crystals is they affect the pH of our body, the electrical conductivity, whether it's pink tourmaline, black tourmaline, clear crystal quartz, rose quartz. It is always adding some form of charge that is neither positive or negative, but a flux or a flow that is continuing adding to our pulsating auric frequency.
I would agree with that. But when you look at the plant and the mineral kingdom, they all have energy vibrations. They all have a specific usage, whether it's external, whether it's medicinal, and the mineral kingdom is the same way. I think a lot of individuals kind of take nature for granted in the sense of maybe what they put in their body, or maybe not understanding that everything is alive and vibrating, and that the more that you understand and tap into the abilities of the plant and mineral and even the animal kingdoms, it enhances your life so much more greatly, because I think we become so desensitized in electronics, computers, televisions. We become kind of disconnected from the natural world.
Through all sorts of dirty electromagnetic frequencies. And crystals are not a dirty electromagnetic frequency. They're natural.
They're natural, and crystals themselves and the mineral kingdom, when you really stop and think about it, it is the foundation of all technology. I don't care if it's a radio, if it's a computer, if it's a cell phone. Without the mineral kingdom, technology in its very nature would not exist.
So true. It is through vibration and the understanding of vibration that we can learn the crystal and mineral community's individuated purpose to work with us as individuals, collectives, or semi-collectives. Crystals find themselves in collectives. They're gathered from minds in which miners come together as a collective to bring out to the world. Oftentimes, these crystals have their own agenda, find their own humans to take them on their journey where they're supposed to go, and to be crafted into what they are finally meant to be.
I totally agree. Let's put up slide 1. I wanted to cover something that Einstein basically said. Basically, everything is vibration. I mean, this is Albert Einstein, that in its simplest form, everything is vibration. We hear it all the time. We hear raise your frequency and vibration. And to a certain degree, some individuals wonder what that means.
Oh, yeah. And what was Albert trying to tell us? Everything is vibration. Understanding vibration is how you perceive harmonies, disharmonies, and the way things come together in chords within the waveform.
Exactly. And it's something that I always tell people. Life itself is simplistic. We tend to overcomplicate things. We disconnect ourselves from nature, which nature is a wonderful healer. We look for exotic ways to live that separates us more away from the natural ways of healing ourselves. We look for pharmaceuticals that will numb us out and not truly addressed at the very core of whatever we need to deal with. Crystals in their very nature, I say that they're Mother Nature's way of reconnecting back to source.
They are a tool of interconnectivity.
Most definitely.
Through interconnectivity, we get to expand our awareness by sharing vibration and frequency, which is what I call the signature frequency moment of the now. The frequency, the vibration, and the consciousness are aligning in a chord or harmony like a barbershop quartet.
I'm so happy you said that, because when you think about harmony, when your body's in harmony with its surroundings, you affect your surroundings with your harmony. It's not the other way around. You have such a deep influence on everything that comes into your energy field. Most individuals give that power away. And when you think about it, why do they call it power?
Exactly. Power is something to understand as responsibility. The responsibility the crystal and mineral community bring to us is choice of harmony and tranquility and natural beingness.
That is correct. What I wanted to do, just to keep it simplistic, let's go to a video that I've prepared that just gives the simplistic form of what the mineral kingdom can do. Okay, as you can see in the video itself, you've got components. You've got aluminum can, you've got copper, you've got rubber to insulate, and then you've also got a container. The container itself will be where everything will go into. What we're doing is we're going to make a battery. In its simplest form, we're going to put, okay,
We're going to put the aluminum can with the copper around it into the container and add the salt to it.
Yeah, we're going to put salt water into it, and the salt water a lot of people don't realize that salt holds a charge. You have ions that are flowing in salt. Now, table salt, I don't like table salt just because how it's processed.
It's deionized.
It's deionized, they take the charge out, but there still is a charge. There's very little minerals in the salt itself, which we need minerals from salt just to function properly.
That's right.
And as you can see in the video, what's going to happen is that you'll see the reaction between the copper, the aluminum, and the salt, and the electrical charge that's created that will drive the fan. And you'll also get a measurement on his meter that shows you in milliamps just what kind of voltage is being generated.
And we've seen ancient technology called the Babylonian batteries, which took basically grape juice or some other kind of acidic and used a copper foil and did virtually the same thing 5,000 years ago, called the Baghdad batteries.
There you go. So the whole point of this video is to illustrate, just by introducing salt into a copper and aluminum environment, that it's going to have an electrical charge. So think of when you're introducing the proper minerals into your body. What happens is it also creates a charge because your whole body is electrical.
That's right. Based off of the salinity of your blood. Your pH.
Your pH, and when you think about it, we're 70% water. And the salt acts as a medium or a charge, so everything can communicate properly. So some of the best salts to use when you're cooking would be Himalayan salt, would be real salt, will be something that's mined, not processed.
That's right.
You have to be careful with some sea salts because how they process them, they take away a lot of the vital force of the salt and the energies out of it itself.
The iodine.
Yes. So this was just a little bit of a demonstration to let individuals understand how simplistic it is to make a battery, and that to a certain degree our bodies act like a battery.
A living battery with a living algorithm that is a spirit.
That is correct. And as we get a little bit more into the interview itself, I'll have some more slides that we can have for better demonstration of just what the mineral kingdom means.
Now, one of the unique things about salt itself, from a very, let's say, spiritual esoteric process, it's the great balancer, the great neutralizer. Now, salt comes in blue, red, green. Blue salt, for me, is one of the most unique aspects of flavor that's added. And it only comes from certain places in Iran. Green salt comes from Afghanistan and Turkey and stuff like that, which has different minerals in it, different aspects to it. I encourage people to go and find different forms of salt that, just as Robert has said, that hasn't been machined but has been mined, that is coming to you in rock format or pebble format, and to use that in your food, or begin to add pinches of that to water, as well as getting pH strips to test your own urine so you can begin to understand, what is my pH? pH is your electrical conductivity, means how much spirit can flow through your body then. There are times that people want mystical experiences, and guess what? Their pH of their body just can't produce it, which creates depression and disconnection from the natural world. Crystals and mineral communities come in and bridge that gap where our bodies may not be able to produce the charge, but through harmony, frequency, and vibration, we can raise our frequency to understand why toxification has limited our pH or perception and belief.
Absolutely. And when you think about what you just said, we've been so conditioned to go to the store, get processed salt, thinking that it's a spice that adds flavor to our food, where in reality, if you go back a couple hundred or thousand years, it was actually valued for its medicinal purposes. And in some cultures, it was valued as money.
As gold, as much as gold, because it's what's preserved food. Also, salt caves are one of the most ancient forms of healing. When people had sicknesses and disease, they will go into these caves of salt and be ionized by the energy. Even in modern history, all over the world, there are businesses from strip malls to houses that have 20, 30 tons of salt in a room, and a little machine that has ground up salt, particleized, going through the room, so you're standing in powdered pink Himalayan, giant hunks, 40 tons of salt in this 30 by 30 room with salt ventilated through. Ancient, old history thing of way of healing, still in modern society. And I advise people to Google salt cave in your zip code. You'd be surprised to find they're all over the world.
Exactly. And one thing I would definitely say, as you go on a spiritual journey, understanding the mineral kingdom will help you achieve goals quicker, because what it does, it brings a healing into your mind, body, spirit. It will reconnect you to higher, I call it higher realms of information, knowledge, knowing, because we've been so programmed from a young age and disconnected through belief systems that we've lost that sense of knowing from a child.
Right. The other aspect that crystal and mineral kingdoms bring to us is companionship and friendship on that journey. The journey and the pilgrimage to the sacred self isn't a lone inner journey, but we still have companions along the way. The inner great work that we do is our self-processing. And many people get lost in what is self-processing versus sharing of the experience. Crystal and mineral communities are sharing our experience through their frequency, through their vibration, adding to our frequency and vibration, companionship, as well as their energy, which is helping drive and force our energy frequencies, our will and determination to go forward each and every day in knowingness, not in distraction from the global narrative.
Exactly. I think the more that we're able to disconnect from television, from phones, from a lot of the other electronic devices, especially if you want to heal your body and spirit and truly take a journey, it's necessary to get out in nature, to take your shoes off, and you will be surprised just one day in nature how much better you feel, because you're able to discharge a lot of that negative energy that you've accumulated in your aura.
Yes.
That holds you back.
I call it very slow lightning that comes out of you, that we've been holding in, and there's bungee cords of ourself attached to it that's trying to get out of our frequency, but can't because we're in the perception of indoors. And then when we get outside, that bungee cord stretch, and pink, one comes off, and another, until finally we're said, wow, there's a weight off my shoulders.
Exactly. And where healing comes in, when you really think about it, when you're communing with nature, when you're quiet, when you hear birds or you hear the ocean or you hear just nature in general, and you're surrounded by all these ionic charges, what it does, it has such a strong rejuvenating principles, because I truly believe ions carry information that help also to repair parts of your body.
Absolutely. As well as store information. Our bodies are instruments of perception, perspective. Our DNA is the instrument of the experience. We are a crystalline DNA frequency. Water is a crystalline frequency. Our bones are a crystalline frequency. We are always under pressure from the gravity of this world, meaning whenever a crystal is under pressure, it is creating the piezoelectric effect. The water crystalline of our water is under pressure. We are pH-driven beings who have an awareness of an I am inside them, an I am that's experiencing the world through the instrument of experience, our DNA, our perception, our mothers, our fathers, the generations before and the generations that are to come. Crystals and mineral communities are legacies of these moments of now that have made it to the surface world, waiting to be passed to the next person, the next and the next. So there is a cyclical evolution of knowledge.
And one thing I can also say that the mineral kingdom is very fascinating, where you think you may know something 1 minute, it is extremely vast.
Vast.
Let's pull up slide 3. I want to show you something. Okay, slide 3 basically shows you a crystal disk. The University of Southampton has created a crystal that can store 360 terabytes of data. It's only about 1 inch round. You can see how big it is. And that gives you an ideal of how vast and how expansive of amount of information you can store on something so tiny. And this crystal is virtually you can't destroy it easily at all.
It's virtually indestructible. Yeah.
That's right. And if you Google Superman crystal, you'll be able to find out a little bit more. But you can see how technology is getting smaller. You're able to store more information on it. And it's pretty amazing how far we've come in a short period of time.
Less than 100 years ago, it was the crystal tip of a needle on a vinyl album. And now it's 300 terabytes.
And that's for right now.
For right now, exactly.
You can imagine in the next 5 years, it'll probably be triple or quadruple that.
Exactly.
All that information at your fingertip.
Literally, tip.
So what I can say personally is that I've gained a different respect for my reality. I've gained a different respect for Mother Nature by understanding the different kingdoms, plant, animal, mineral, how they all work together. Very blessed to go down this journey and to be able to share what I've learned with other individuals. And there's other individuals that I talk to almost on a daily basis that are very curious about crystals, and we'll talk about some of the creations that I've put together in the form of pendants that people can wear here in a moment. But I guess I wanted to just pause and let people know that if you have a connection with crystals, if it's pulling you, if you feel divinely guided, that's something that you need to follow. It will take you on a journey where you are intended to go. And it's not about what other people say. Because as I went down this journey to understand this, people thought I was crazy. Why are you doing this? Or why are you doing that? Does it make sense? But I can honestly say that I've transformed completely into the person that I'm intended to be. The journey's not over. I don't see an end to the journey because now I'm in the wonderment of every day unfolding.
The natural synchronicities of the crystals are coming to and from your energy field, bringing you pulses of inspiration, creation, and dreams to create a pendant that is a technology, an assemblage of crystal knowledge that has been a form of a jewelry, something that is an age-old artistic technique since the dawn of accessorizing the human body.
Oh, most definitely. What I wanted to do is kind of like the previous slide shows where you can store a lot of information in a crystal. So part of the designs that I've come up with also includes programming the crystals, coming up with harmonic codes, coming up with healing codes that is transmitted from the pendant to the end user. A lot of individuals say, well, why would you want to program a pendant? The reason why you program a pendant is because, like anything else, it enhances the experience. The information that passes through from that program will make a bigger difference because You can program your own pendants with your intentions. But what I find, like we talked about with the pH balance, most people don't have a strong enough intent and signal to make a difference when they're working with crystals.
Exactly. Much to like a Wi-Fi signal that is 60 feet away, you may be able to get one text message through it, but you'll never get a phone call through.
Exactly. And I think the biggest message that I've learned from this, as you expand your auric field, as you increase the energy and power within your own being, you really do affect not only your reality, but others around you, because that information with your intent is transmitted and transferred to others as well.
Yes. That intent has many levels of awareness behind it. There's adult intent, and then there's young adult and baby intent. The most basic form of intent is my intention is to do good. My awareness may limit me of all that is good and bad, but my intent is there. Adult intent is we say, I am choosing to make a moment relevant to me through my conscious application of the sacred, meaning I'm turning off the global infrastructure of distraction, telephone, internet, people trying to get a hold of you, so that you are solely in communication with the self at that moment, who is able to commune and find union with other companions in the energy frequency that are crystals, that are always singing to us like a barbershop quartet. We must simply tune in, slow down, understand, process, and love in return, unconditionally.
And unconditionally, we've been taught all of our lives to place conditions upon everything.
So true. Conditions on everything.
But the true power is in the opposite. It's in being unconditional.
Yeah.
That's when things flow through you.
And we do that by understanding expectations create our limitations. There are times our brain fills in the blanks, and it's sometimes correct. That is basic expectation. Crystals are precognition. There is no relevance between guessing and precognition. It's in your knowingness.
And your knowingness, and also trusting your knowing.
It's so true. That's the other part of staying awake with the pH that can drive for the biochemical soup of awareness. That's the endurance of life. Why living the mystical life is a daily path, not a monthly or yearly reflection.
And once you go down that path, what I tell everyone, when you get to a certain point, you can't go back, because there's nothing to go back to.
Point of no return. Go to an illusion and accept an illusion and become delusional, or stay awake and carve out something that you love so you can thrive.
Exactly. I mean, when you look at today's world, you turn on the internet, you see all these distractions around you, political, medical, militarily. If you were to put all your intentions into that, it shrinks your auric field. You actually start to create and experience what you see. And instead of being someone that's going to make a difference in the world, you're just a part of what's happening. And it's happening to you from your own self.
Right. Because you are acting in an unsovereign manner, allowing your awareness to be used or abused. When one finds the sovereign self and has sovereign companionships in the crystal and mineral and animal medicine communities, you have a whole different point of view that is not limitation or suppression, but the unlimited point of view. And all the unlimited point of view is a recognition that whatever limitations you might have in the moment, you will actively try to deprogram you so you can maintain the potential of unlimited point of view. For in unlimited point of view will be the greatest inspiration, creation, and understanding of how to act in the now.
Exactly. Where when you get to that certain point, you can see a video, and you can tell if someone's telling the truth or not just because of your own knowing. We have all these instincts, senses, and ability that we have nullified. And once you go through that healing process and reconnection process, what it does, it allows the proper information through your filters to know what the truth is. And when you know what the truth is, then you also know how to survive in that environment.
So well put. Surviving in the environment until such a time you can learn to thrive in the environment.
Exactly. Exactly. So just getting back to the pendants and why they're programmed, we've got many different codes that are harmonic from nature that has everything to do with healing. From anxiety and depression, for example, we have a frequency. Sound of the sun. I think sometimes we take the sun itself for granted, but without the sun, its frequencies and information, we would not survive in this reality. It communicates with plants, animals. It communicates and creates vitamins within our body. There's constant frequencies coming from the sun.
Albert, we have gone over some incredible material. Now your next slide is going to be talking about auras, how the pendants affect the auras, some of the science that's behind there. Let's delve into the aura, and how these pendants affect it.
Okay, let's pull up slide 4. I'll show you what your typical aura looks like before a pendant is put on and what it looks like after one of our pendants are put on. In this particular slide, you can see the before. It's just kind of dull. There's not much light. It's not much brightness. It's just there. And after, you can see where the whole auric field is lit up. You can look at the heart area. You can see that it starts to open up. There's a light right there by the heart. And then what we found by wearing our pendants is that it has an effect on your whole auric field, your chakra system. We already talked about ions and how ions affect your auric field because of the energy that's being produced by these ions. So what happens is the pendants that we've created, there's different types of crystals, whether it's quartz, lapis lazuli, rose quartz, different characteristics of crystals will have a different effect on the wearer. We also wrap it in a silver silver wrap, which helps to attract the ions, kind of like the battery that we looked at. It helps to take those ions that are being thrown off from the crystal, that when you wear it next to your skin, that information is being transferred into your auric field and your body, pretty much just like the battery that we saw earlier, but it's just an pendant.
What form of photography is this?
What we're looking at right now, this is Kirlian photography. It has the ability to capture what your auric field looks like. We all have an auric field. We all have different colors in our auric field. And the auric field will change as we change. For example, if you're depressed or if you have a lot of anxiety, your auric field will tend to be very dark. It would look very heavy because of the vibration and the frequencies that you experience. If you think of your auric field, think of manifestations in the sense that whatever manifests in your auric field will also manifest in the physical. They're coming up with instruments to measure sickness before it manifests, just because of your auric field will give indications of what's happening in your body, because the auric field, it has to be there first. So if you keep your auric field clear and strong, the chance of manifesting certain illnesses or diseases or sicknesses, it just doesn't happen because you're not in the environment to allow it to happen.
It's preventative maintenance before waiting you get to sick to have a pill to change your frequency.
Exactly. And that's why if you have an opportunity, and there's different type of Kirlian photography that's out there, and some are much better than others. There are some that I call novelty that will give you colors, but they really don't mean anything. Some of the older Kirlian photography cameras, like this is an older style. It actually has like a Polaroid film that it uses to capture your auric field, is much better than some of the newer digitized auric fields.
Mm-hmm. There's something in the alchemy as it goes to the paper of manifestation.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
And for whatever reason, when you use computers and digitize the information, it's just not as strong as clear if you're using just regular old-fashioned cameras. Yeah, that's right.
Now, some of the other slides you have show a different form, like a gas chromatic look at how the pendants are exchanging energy.
Yeah, let's take a look at slide 5, which what this is called is gas discharge visualization. It is similar to an aura photo, but what this does, it allows us to see metals and crystals on how they vibrate. You can see the energy that's coming off of this pendant that we've designed, and it's just continuous. It's just, think of it like a battery that's constantly putting off energy.
Mm-hmm. As well as taking in energy. It is as if it's its own dynamo of energy action.
Exactly. And what I find out from information from customers that start to use the pendants and get used to them, they go through a transformation in the sense that they get so used to having it and feel like they're so connected. Let's say if you wanted to increase abundance and prosperity in your life, one of the biggest things that holds the average person back is their self-worth.
That's right. Self-valuing and self-worth. So many people devalue themselves. When they find a crystal that gives them energy, they tend to give away a bit of perceptive power to it instead of generating their own power.
Exactly. So we do have a frequency that helps with information that allows you to heal your sense of self-worth. That is programmed into it. You can be put into many different opportunities, but if your self-worth, your self-esteem, and sense of self is not there, you will self-sabotage.
Yes.
You will.
We all have an inner saboteur as an archetype, as well as a victim and a tyrant and all of those other archetypical words that are out there. Many of us have do the great work on ourselves to see the saboteur in action. Crystals help us find the reflection or projection from others that are creating fuel for the saboteur, or the part that devalues us, or the part that's depression, regression, or obsession. Shame, blame, and guilt are the same things, ways we suppress our ability to be ourselves.
Oh, most definitely. And that's why crystals are so healing, because as you wear a crystal, you are allowing yourself to be opened up to information that you would not have been available without wearing it. So and it's like we said, you've got both ways. You've got information that's passing to your auric field, like we saw earlier, and you've got information that's being transferred to the crystal.
In a continuous cycle.
In a continual cycle. So I always tell individuals that when you go down this journey, they will help you heal. They are tools only. As you get to a certain point in life, you may or may not use them, but you will know when you need them, because they're just tools. They're not a crutch. Because once you start going through that healing process, you may not find yourself attracted at that moment, but there's certain plateaus that we all go through on this journey.
And those plateaus are moments where we may take vacations from self-transformation, and that's okay. And when we come back from the vacation of self-transformation, we discovered we have lost nothing and gained a whole new sacred point of view.
Most definitely, because it truly is a journey. I think some of us feel that there's a destination. Once we get to this certain place, everything will be great and wonderful, and I'm done. That doesn't exist. That's a fairy tale.
It's a fairy tale. A fairy tale of expectations, creating
That's
a
it.
limitation. There is always another stone to unturn about the self, because it's a limitless self that has set many stones in the future for you to stub your toe on, to see as a great diamond, to walk right past and not see it shining right there, or to have stones of others cast at us as projections until one day we pick a stone up and throw it back at them in love, saying, "This is yours, not mine."
Exactly. And just as you said, one thing that was very difficult for me in the beginning as I went on my own spiritual journey is that I wanted to make everyone happy. I wanted to please people. I wanted to save people in certain aspect. I wanted them to see my point of view.
Yep. You want to be heard.
Exactly. My own sense of self and identity. And when you are too forceful in your own healing process, it turns people off. What I've discovered, it's really about honoring yourself and honoring other people on their journey as well. That's where the true power is.
And so that we don't step on their journey of free will, but still are able to offer advice that isn't charge or polarity, that can have some relevance to their journey.
Oh, most definitely.
So many people that are in the psychic field are working with information of true irrelevance, imprinting a person. Crystals are trying to make your life force relevant now. And when we begin to work with relevant now, we uncover parts of ourselves that want to be heard. And some of those parts want to be heard so loud, they become an obsession or a process that we give away power to others through enablement. Your desire to want to make everyone happy was an unattainable goal because there are people who will not be happy because they're not happy with themselves when they're alone in their own moments.
Exactly. And once you understand, and it really sinks in, by honoring others, it's a reflection. You will get that honor in return because there's no judgment. There's no telling someone how to live their lives. That really gets back into that unconditional.
So true. Within unconditional, there are no conditions. Unconditional love is truly the unlimited point of view.
Exactly. And when you start to live your life that way, what happens is it takes a burden away from you because we find ourselves trying to not only live our lives, but we want to live other people's lives.
That's right.
And sometimes we spend more time in other people's lives than healing our own issues.
So true. I run across this every day in my private and public sessions. People not truly investing their own time in their own uniqueness of frequency, trying to discover sacred discipline, yet can't make it work because their pH, electrical personal conductivity, is so inferior to their inspiration within. They must change their internal bodies so their spiritual internal body, going through the experience, has charge and polarity to create memories that are neither good nor bad, but memories of the potency of the experience.
Couldn't have put it better myself. And when you think about the simplicity of healing yourself, in reality, when you really heal yourself, you're also helping to heal relationships around you. Right. So if you're in relationships right now that are either abusive or relationships that are very difficult or toxic, there's nothing wrong with stepping away from those relationships. I also had to learn that it's okay to step away from them.
I call this the separation of densities. Those that are living the unsovereign life of personal charge and polarity without finding the neutral point of view each day, so they can let go of the charge and polarity and see themselves on their own journey, in their own way, in their own pace, as a sovereign natural order being.
That's right. So if you are unconditional, that's what you get back. If you honor, that's what you get back. Look at it as a reflection. It will give you back what you want back.
So true. So true. Knowing what you want versus knowing what you need is inner discernment. And that is something else that crystals that have programs within it assist us at seeing old habitual patterns that repeat themselves, which are repetition without illumination, repetition for repetition's sake. Crystals assist us on the repetition with aha moments, so repetition has illumination.
Oh, most definitely. Let's pull up the next couple of slides so we can see more examples of the pendants that we have and the energy that's being transmitted to the wearer. This next pendant is called the vortex, and you can see the swirl in the middle, but you can see the kind of like a fiery image that comes from the sides of it. So imagine yourself wearing something like this that's constantly putting off a stream of energy 24/7.
Yes.
Would you really think if that would enhance your healing process by wearing something like this?
Especially over one of your energy centers, like your heart.
Exactly, and that's where I usually tell individuals to wear their pendants as close to their heart as possible. Because when you think about your heart, the heart itself is the love aspect of your chakra.
Yep.
The heart itself is, I think of it as kind of a master communication aspect of self.
I call it a transmutation, transformation vessel that is continuously transmuting and transforming light. So transcendence is a perspective.
Yes, I would completely agree with that. So when you look at these images, let's go to the next image. The next image is going to be of a scarab, and this is one of our popular designs, and then you can really see the energy. It looks like electricity.
Like lightning bolts.
Yeah, lightning bolts that are coming off of them.
Okay. Micro lightning bolts instead of macro lightning bolts. Lightning bolts generally don't come down from the sky. Most of the time they go up.
Up. A lot of people don't understand that.
That's right.
It's the opposite.
It's the opposite. Our eyes cannot perceive fast enough.
Exactly. So when you think of life in general, and it took me a while to understand this, everything is upside down, backward, and twisted.
I call it the upside down, inside out room of mirrors.
And when you get to the point of understanding that what you perceived life to be isn't really what it was, what you thought.
That's right. It was an illusion.
And it was a complete illusion. And when you wake up, you find yourself in a world where most people are not awake, where it's very difficult to communicate who you are, but there are other people that you run into that you speak the same language.
That's right. Like we are.
Exactly.
Both crystal guys, both gone through our own confirmation, affirmation through our life process that these are things we are going to talk about and have our deepest knowingnesses with.
So the biggest thing that I can relay is that you're not alone. I know there's many individuals out there that feel like they're alone on their journey. Some friends and family don't understand how they can perceive the world in a certain way, and that they're an oddball, or that they're crazy, or that you should be locked up. but you're not alone is truly the message that I can convey. And I truly believe there's more and more people that are going through the awakening process, that are seeing through the illusions that have been placed over our eyes, and it will continue to change as time goes by, and to not really fear anything, because some people do fear death. One of the things that I've come to understand is I don't fear death.
Okay.
It's a transition. I've gone through it many times.
What are the rules of the universe? Energy is never destroyed. It is just transformed into something else.
And that goes back to the Einstein image that we put up. Everything is frequency and vibration. Nothing can be destroyed. And when you live your life as if you're not afraid to die, that's when you live.
That's when you get to learn to live with potency, power, as a sovereign, natural-born being, living a natural life that's still functioning in this 3D matrix as a powerful being of transforming light.
Oh, most definitely. And then you truly come from a place of joy, because when you're being happy, it's a real happy. You're not faking anything. And you will find that people want to be around you to the point that, okay, I want to be alone now, because you give off a certain frequency, a certain vibration, a certain light that they're lacking, that they've had limits on their lives, and you're like this shining ray of light that helps them find their way.
Yes. And then there are times when we're that shining ray of light and you run across a very hurt person and they attack. Crystals assist us at rejecting, suspending, and altering those attacks, or bringing our awareness to it, so that we can gently, through unconditional love, remove the potential of distortion.
Most definitely. And that was the other reason why I wanted to be involved in creating pendants, because they do offer a sense of protection. Since you saw the aura photo, how bright your aura gets. One of the practices that you should have on a daily basis, by using your imagination, expanding your auric field and making it extremely strong. So when you're in negative situations, what you do is you just go back to that image of yourself having a strong auric field. Nothing can penetrate your field, because that's your space. I truly believe that we are in a free will universe. However, you have to be responsible and exercise that right of free will by allowing those in your field, and the ones that you don't want in your field, politely let them know this is not acceptable.
That's right. That's the power of no. And if something doesn't understand no, you ask it, what part of no don't you understand, the N or the O?
Exactly. And that goes from the sense of any relationship that would be abusive to you. Mother, father, sister, brother. It's not fair to be abused.
Nope.
And those relationships will only make your healing process more difficult. And the sooner that you can get away and heal, the better you will be. And it takes some courage and power, but once you go through that process and get that respect back for yourself, once that's back, those who have abused you in the past will not be able to abuse you in the future, because you set a healthy boundary.
Borders, boundaries, rules, and policies of the 3D corporate matrix can directly apply to our spiritual points of view. How we run the incorporation of our spirit in our physical body is vitally important to how we live our purpose, how we express our purpose, how we transform and transcend energy around us. The power to be a sovereign, fully present being is your legacy to yourself. And when others are trying to outcreate yourself and imprint and project on you, it is your sovereign right to outcreate them with inspiration, joy, dreams, and happiness with such intense potency that whatever the projection is becomes irrelevant to your inspiration?
Exactly. When I started my career, I worked for a major corporation for 18 years. This was a Fortune 500 company. Corporations are notorious, and I mean notorious, for taking away your sense of self. They give you a false illusion of a ladder that you climb, that you're creative, that you're a part of something, that you're valued. But in reality, they have everything figured out. And if you don't do as you're told or instructed or follow the tone, you're no longer needed.
You become irrelevant to what they're paying you for.
And the longer that you're in that situation, the more difficult it is to even honor and respect yourself, because you sold out yourself for that illusion.
I get that in private sessions from CEOs and Fortune 500 leaders every week since the beginning of starting this. People have had to sell their soul to the man for the bigger job, to raise the family, until they saw one day they're burnt out and no one in their family even wants to be around them.
And the other thing that's the most damaging, they don't know what happiness is anymore, because they were chasing a fairy tale that they got lost. And then what is reality now that is removed?
Right. And a lot of people that come from those communities, when they begin to wear pendants like this, there's an obvious auric change. And one of your other slides represents of how the auric frequencies change when a pendant is on and off.
That is correct. Let's go ahead and pull up slide number 9. Slide 9 basically takes a look at the chakra system itself. You can see on the left side, or the left side where it says without pendant, you can see how the chakra system itself is out of balance. You can see that the heart chakra is out of alignment. You can see that the sacral chakra is also somewhat out of alignment. And if you look by wearing one of our pendants, it starts to bring things more back in balance, especially the heart chakra. That goes way back in balance. Depending on the individual, the sacral chakra may have major changes depending on where you are in your process. And this was basically after wearing the pendant for a couple minutes, like 2 minutes. Wow. It works immediately.
Yep. Which I've seen over and over again from just a person picking up a random crystal from a pile of crystals.
And just like this, the auriflow that we saw earlier, that was like 1 minute later, the changes start to happen. Now, one thing I do want to say, this is not a miracle, meaning that you also need to participate. Crystals will not violate your free will. You need to be very attentive of your thoughts, know what your intentions are, honor the power that you have, because I truly believe crystals will take you where you want to go. However, it will not do things for you.
No. Meaning
that you are a part of the experience and the process.
Equal co-creation and non-competition, non-hierarchical order is the journey the crystals want to share with you individually. And when you come to that intent of, I'm here to equally co-create with this crystal, I'm not here to compete with it, and we are not in a hierarchical pecking order.
And that goes back to honor again, and also having no conditions. Because it's the letting go, truly. It's the letting go is when the power starts to come into you. Because what I'm finding out, even on my own journey, I've become a lot more creative, where I get visions. The best way to describe it is like a blueprint of information. Like when I created the infusion process, I didn't know anything about infusing crystals with harmonic codes, nothing whatsoever. So I gave it meditation, It was one night I woke up and it was almost as if I received a download of how to put everything together, step by step, knowing what to do. And it all manifested in the reality. And that's happening to this very day, where even in building the community of people who wear the pendants, which right now it's over 3,000 people that have purchased, bought, used. We get very little returns. I would say if I sold 1,000, we may get 1 or 2 back out of that.
Wow. Let's bring up the next slide that has a picture of the pendant. So people have seen the Kirlian photography version, the gas chromatic version. Now let's see what they look like.
Okay, the next slide that comes up, this is called Solar. And it's an Egyptian-style pendant that is intended to be as an amulet for protection. And you can see that there's an Ankh on there, and those symbols actually represent Ra, kind of a protector and a warrior. And the stone on this particular one is a rainbow labradorite stone, which labradorite within itself is a mystic kind of a stone because a lot of the colors, the frequency and vibration, and it's really good for people who want to truly have a mystical experience, who want to accelerate their healing process.
As well as labradorite will bring up your shadow issues. It will catalyze the shadow to the surface so you can begin to neuter its ability to make changes within your sympathetic or parasympathetic.
Exactly, and this is one of our better seller pendants, and you can see the wire wrapping around it, which again, what the wrapping of those wires do help to capture the ions, which transmit to your skin. And I always recommend that when you wear crystals, you wear it on your skin. You don't want clothing between yourself and the crystal, because clothing will act like an insulator, where it won't transmit the electrical impulses or the electricity signal through to your body, and that's why you want to wear it on your skin.
So true. Now, how long ago did you make your first pendant?
It was probably 2 years, maybe a little bit over 2.5 years ago. So I've been at this 2.5 years. And I can honestly say I love this every moment that I do it. There's been so many wonderful stories of individuals that they've had great healing experiences that were life-changing. As far as gratitude, I know I was guided to do what I'm doing right now, instinctively, and just what I'm supposed to be doing.
Man, we've had an incredible conversation. Now let's bring up the next slide. It's got another version. You use different stones, different styles. Let's talk about what this one is for.
Okay, the next one that's coming up is a scarab. This is also rainbow labradorite for the background of the scarab itself. You can see that this is an Egyptian-styled a beetle or scarab. It's holding the sun. The body is opal, and the symbology that's around, there's 11 symbols that are basically symbols from the tarot, the tarot deck that I wanted to use for this particular design. On the website, quantumstones.com, it will give you a full description of the healing and protective symbols, because symbols themselves affect the conscious and the subconscious mind. A lot of individuals don't understand that symbology. It affects your thinking process.
Yes, both seen and unseen. Just as if a very distant stop sign, innately you already know that the hexagon in red is a stop sign, that is a symbol, that has a sigil of power behind it. And what you are doing is using symbols and sigils of power that have ancient meanings long before this person was born, as well as this time's life's mythos. And when you combine mythos, we get to that we are conscious manifesting beings, and it's not about what we think, it's about what we believe, seen and unseen. And when you take the soup soup of seen and unseen, and you create a living algorithm of a pendant, you have a sigil of power that is creating power, not for power's sake, but for the natural living's sake.
Exactly. So one of the things that, as I've created these pendants, I wanted to put the intent. So people that are reading what these symbols mean and understand the intent behind it, there seems to be a collective effect. So for instance, if I create 5 of these pendants, and as each individual that comes in and wear these pendants, there seems to be a collective benefit for a group of people that are in alignment with the intent of wearing that pendant. It becomes stronger.
That's right, because there's a bond.
Exactly.
A bond that is using equal co-creation, non-competition, non-hierarchical order, and the common moral code of do no harm to any sentient kind as the frequency of the bonding.
And since we, as a collective, whether you want to understand how psychic abilities work, if you put your thoughts, feelings, and emotion out there, someone's got to receive it.
Exactly. Even if it's just yourself, witnessing
That's
your own
right.
power.
Whatever goes out, it's being received back from someone or something. And again, as you boost your energy field, your auric field, your vibrations like we talk about, you do have the ability to influence so much around you.
That's so true.
So
imprint,
this particular,
imprint,
yes,
as well as influence without enablement.
exactly. And this particular pendant is used by a lot of healers. I get healers and psychic readers that are attracted to this particular pendant that they use in their work. And it seems to be very effective for them to channel energies, for their abilities to be strengthened. And I've gotten many, many comments of how happy they were to use this.
Yeah. So Albert, of all the years you've been working on crystals, all the ones that you've created, what has been the thing that's continued to drive you forward?
You know what? A simple answer would be the unknown, because the more I think I know and start to understand crystals, the less I truly know, because when you think about the amount of different type of minerals and crystals and frequencies and abilities and metaphysical properties, I can spend literally a lifetime experiencing and putting together tools that assist other people that I couldn't even get bored from.
So we are able to have these crystals as a part of a community with us. We're able to be in equal co-creation, non-competition, non-hierarchical order. We get the inspiration. We're wearing this pendant. What does the future of pendants look like? What's in the next realm of imagination of creation there?
What I'm seeing happening is, and it's one of the most amazing things, is that sales have increased drastically over the last year. People are more open to use tools. People are understanding that they need certain healing and aspects. And for me, it's about building a community is the next stage where people can share their experiences, share their knowledge and wisdom. And I also want to get more into sound healing, with actually coming up with meditations that has to do with frequencies and vibrations that you can listen to, because that's also a big part of a healing process, is by introducing sounds and colors, as well as working with crystals.
That is a wonderful future to look forward. So why don't you make sure people know how to get a hold of you, your website, and where they can see your pendants?
Okay, if you go to quantumstones.com, this is where you'll find our whole collection. We also have articles on crystals. We have articles on wellness. We want to be able to actually cater more towards not just crystals, but really good information on the healing journey, using crystals, what foods to eat, the self-healing journey. It's really about not relying on what is considered health care. There's a big debate these days about health care. Health care starts at home. It doesn't start with your doctor. If you're not taking care of yourself, you will end up seeing a doctor. And the question is, will he take care of you properly once you're there? Because in Western medicine, we tend to treat symptoms, and what we're doing with, not the cause, in reality with crystals, we're getting to the core of many of our emotional, physical issues that we've experienced in our lives. So the quantum stones site, as it continues to develop, and it's going to be a brand new look and feel coming in the future, will be a community where people can actually come and learn. And I'm going to make it where there's no ads. So when you come, you're not going to see all these ads. You will actually be accessing really good information.
Albert, thank you so much for coming on the show. I look forward to having you on another one. And you will be at our live event October 5th through the 8th in Seattle at the Marriott next to the SeaTac. And if you want to be able to see some of the stones that Albert will have there, I please encourage you to come and purchase Living the Mystical Life Daily online course. And when you do, you're able to get 2 free tickets to come to the event. Thanks a lot, everyone. I look forward to seeing you on the next interview.
Thank you, Andrew.
Some people with their truths, they can have vested interest in them and their perspectives being accepted.
The only truth.
Yeah, I get that, because it's like, to me, like, say someone, I use the analogy of someone that's like a PhD in university that writes a book on certain science, and the science might be wrong, but they might be so vested in their perception of themselves being someone that they're not.
Yeah,
they
exactly.
Maintain that falseness in the reality, and who's going to challenge them?
No, exactly.
So it's like,
and science is nothing more than theory, and anything to do with anything about archaeology is only theory. There are no facts in archaeology.
absolutely. And it's like, the fascinating thing about that, it's believed by the mainstay of society. Like, it's not based on anything, and it's guessing. But people are driven to the guess more than the truth, because they accept the guess more. It's fascinating.
Yep.
Because everything's a hypothesis, basically.
Absolutely everything is a theory and hypothesis.
But that's
Placebo belief proves that.
that's that comment that you made, mate. It's like suspension of belief. I like that I actually hear it for the first time. Maybe you've said it a lot,
Yep,
But,
I have quite a few.
but it's exactly what it is. It's a suspension of the belief concept. Can you actually give yourself the sacred space of letting a belief go?
Yep. Yeah. Long enough to do whatever it is that's going on in front of you, whether it's watching TV or reading a book, so it makes, cognitive sense and joy to you.
I mean, to me, it's a whole topic in itself. Suspension of belief. Like, have you actually contemplated those words mixed together? Like, are you able to, like, bring yourself into a state where actually you relieve yourself and release yourself of all the preconcepts that you've applied without discernment? What power? What power do you have in your potential in that moment if you actually have the courage to? To me, it's like, bang, there it is.
And people do it every day. every day.
Yeah.
Hundreds of examples that are every day where people have a suspension of belief.
Because I mean, like say with Sean and stuff like that, I actually had the talk about passion, energy, and what I said to him then is like my DJing days in the 90s, because I was so passionate about expressing myself musically through records and sound, it drove me to learn how to search on the internet, just as a byproduct of wanting the outcome of having the best records I could get, because records are very hard to get. So that passion drove me to develop the skill set of mastery of the internet searching in the 90s when there was no Google and stuff. And then I realized, hey, I've actually developed this amazing ability to search. How can I use it? And then it was like,
Yeah, exactly.
so like I see the suspension of belief and that passion. It's like if you're really driven by something like a game, like a computer game, you know, you develop that skill to overcome a hurdle in that. And how did you do it? You release yourself of the limits that were imposed on you previously, and you had an understanding that you could do it. You know, why can't you translate that to anything?
Exactly. Why can't you translate to anything? Mandy, what is your view on the suspension of belief?
Where I am today has completely changed from what my experience of those words were prior to the co-creation.
Thank you. You learned suspension of belief there, didn't you?
Yeah.
At a different scale.
Complete and totally.
That was me sharing my suspension of disbelief rule set when I go into creativity. And that's because everything we do is a shared reality, and it's innate in all of us. And it was an equal co-creation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like that passion thing metaphor that I used, like another thing was like with me and entering the meditation group that I had, it's like the teacher said, when you enter this room, leave your problems at the door, to give you that space to sort of have a sacred, you know, ceremony time for yourself where you can just give yourself that gap, because that gap is like, it's like, say, I also, and I know you do, is you watch TV series to sort of distract you, to give you that distraction, so that, you know, it's like active meditation where you get distracted, then you can actually come up with a solution. So it's like, it's all in that same frame set. Like you can actually choose to, in this moment, suspend every belief with everything you do, to leave the true essence of who you are for the most potential to be revealed. And it might be like a muscle that you develop to like have it for 5 minutes, go on a walk, and then like train yourself like to develop it.
Yep. And suspension of belief, that training of that skill is what allows you to be awakened in the dream.
It allows you to break your own rules.
Uh-huh. Exactly. That's why I keep saying we are now in a better position than we have ever been, even when we were in 6th and 5th density. There's a window of opportunity for people to create a thought construct, whether it's music, artwork, a computer program, a book, whatever. Okay? Something that makes manifestation that many can witness. The world can change that fast. Shared thought construct that can't be evaluated. Da-da-da-da.
Yeah. Well, I'm also thinking like say if you, I don't want to cut you off if you're in a stream. Do you
I
want
was going to say that's what the co-creation is. It's a thought construct that can simultaneously connect to everyone that's reading it. If they go through at least one part of the suspension of belief, it's a book. that's the suspension of belief target for the book. It's a book.
Yeah.
It's written. Paper, digital document. I read shit all the time. What does it leave as an imprint in you when you're done reading it?
To me,
A construct.
To me,
A construct that has the potential of becoming lucid. All right, go ahead.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I might have a bit of a delay. But,
Yeah.
But, like, for me, like, in that moment, I was just contemplating in the silence, and I was, like, sort of feeling my body. And obviously, then if you can actually measure your body, you can actually identify the locations where the beliefs might be hooked into and the location of your body.
Biofeedback.
Yeah.
I learned that at a young age to get rid of migraine headaches. I could make the biofeedback ball or rod or stick or whatever it was glow and get my hands to be 101 to 102 degrees in minutes.
Because, like, the thing is, like, the shadow and stuff, like, the beliefs are locked into those sort of things, and it could be associated with traumas and stuff. So then, because you've gone into an absence of the connection to where the belief came from, like, the body will give you the language of what's going on. One respect.
So if there's a suspension of belief, what happens when you're done in your suspension of belief? Another part to think and contemplate.
Well, to me, it'd be like, say if you associate a belief with a particular frequency or energy, like by having it in the concept of an awareness, then the frequency and vibration and energy of that would have to permeate through to the physical potentially. So there'll be like a release of certain stuff potentially.
Well, here's another note. Less than 100, let's say 110 years ago, there weren't really phonographs, and music was only experienced live. That's barely 3 generations out of our experience.
Yeah.
And in most scenarios, it's still 2 generations out of our experience. And in some scenarios, none, because there are third world countries that don't have, recorded music everywhere. So suspension of belief comes at many levels. So when let's just say we're using an example, you were listening to a song, and your suspension of belief is it's not live, but I'm listening to a song. Okay? And there's another layer of suspension of belief where we're watching television and we're watching, let's say, a kung fu fighting movie, and when we're done, our suspension of belief is we could be that. I'm allowing it to be true that all that could happen, and when it ends, it leaves an imprint upon us. And that imprint is what survives memory during suspension of belief. This is why TV program is so effective against children. So when suspension of belief ends and you go back into believing, you have things that are surgically inserted into your belief system through memory.
So say from birth, like, even though we're white from memory, like I've got this really cool clip with Bruce Lipton, and he's talking about the first 7 years of like data collection to be able to process the reality. Like there's that absorption state of very young. So so even though like probably most people don't remember those sort of early years, a lot of the reality, like local reality that where you sort of originate from, has a lot of concepts that make you a part of that region. So like TV, for example, is an expression of the local reality in which you're operating. So say like a child like absorbs that data to be able to assimilate into the local reality, then say a belief that's instilled in say a metaphor like TV is like a very founding sort of memory that gets triggered at future stages based on that founding data collection sort of time. Is that an interesting concept to sort of offer?
No, that's outstanding concept. If we can use data to make some form of equation, even if it doesn't make true mathematical sense, but it gets the metaphor across, I think that's a very valuable explanation of how kids are imprinted at an early age. And then they experience data overload, which goes direct to the intestinal tract, which is where parasympathetic picks up energy for programs to create with itself when you're not there.
Well, the cellular body sort of like holds data in the skeletal sort of structure, and the growing period is like very, like, it's clean slate, so to speak. So everything is like absorbed, you know, it's like the sponge. And so certain patterns of that data is in the forms of belief, which sort of can impose limits down the track unless there's that suspension of potential belief, because it's an assumption. Therefore, you know, it's like a default sort of mechanism that an individual will go back on that's like acquired via that absorption process. So
yes. So here's a quick thing. So when something is in fear, is it in suspension of belief?
The individual situation would need to be analysed, but then there's social sort of like vast influences over society, sort of fear.
All right, let's use some things that has many dualistic meanings. A ghosty movie, a horror movie. What is the suspension of belief when you go to watch a slasher movie?
Fear of the unknown.
Death.
Yeah.
All the other things that are related to the slasher movie. And then fear itself. Why do movies scare people? I'll use an example. One of the first movies that I realized I was truly scared at, I went to go see Aliens 2 in the movie theater when I was in Maryland with some friends that we had gone there to go and do crab fishing and stuff. And it was at a moment where the alien was coming out and the mother reached by and tapped me and went, ah! All right?
Yeah.
But from that point forth, I understood what I was afraid of.
See, I'm sort of seeing a link between hypnosis and suspension of belief.
Yes, theta state. Suspension of belief is most effective in theta state. At alpha state, it's very, very hard to create suspension of belief because you are manifesting, not suspending.
I'm visual. Like that Aliens movie scares the crap out of me today, let alone back in the movie. You know what I mean? Like the James Cameron one, and you know, like the suspension of belief, say me watching that would be, I'd be totally invested as like one of the Marines or isolated with that threat. And I would be in that situation being empathic. And it's like, you know, the total...
Whose energy are you feeling if you're in a movie theater versus at home? Whose energy are you empathing? Because they're actors. That's suspension of belief. They know they're not real monsters.
Yeah, but it's the empathic visualization of actually being in that scenario.
Your vagus nerve using its precognitive function in a negative format as an instant gratification of fear.
Yeah.
You have no idea how hard that was to explain. Thank you. That was fun.
Yeah. But like, it's like, to me, like going to a movie and actually investing myself in that scenario is actually like empathic psychic muscle training as well, though, to develop my own skill set. You know, it's like if I can invest myself into that scenario, then it's like I'm training myself on a mystical sort of level as well. You know.
Okay.
But I get.
So let's use the mystical now as a different form of suspension of belief. This is engagement of belief. Example, you have people that enjoy Lord of the Rings, etc., 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 and then they begin, emulating that by having all of that stuff around their house.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
They're bringing the suspended belief into their belief.
Well, I mean, I just watched like a really good movie, like documentary on Leonard Nimoy, like Spock, and
Yeah.
like the Star Trek sort of like acceptance in society is actually like a major suspension of belief, because there's also a potential of what might have been as well, like Star Wars and all those sort of things, So it's interesting.
All right, so let me get back into the little suspension belief. There's another nugget there.
Yeah.
So let's go back into the example of being scared. Like, as you said, you were scared at that movie too. After a while, our placebo empowers a reality construct to have residual energies in it. So when I was scared, it was the energy the mother was putting into me to actually, tap and intentionally scare me, which was okay. It was I wasn't upset about it, but it also engaged everyone else's fear, because many people went when I did that, or they flinched. Even the most tiniest flinch response during your suspension of belief means your parasympathetic has engaged it for instant gratification of whatever the topic structure is. Tears, education, the emotional side of us that engages through the stuff, because the suspension of belief is down so we can believe in it.
Okay, I get it, because
Yeah, I get it.
in that very like malleable state, when you're in suspended belief, the what comes in and the metaphor of how you got there, like say this instance, like the fear-based movie that suspended the beliefs that you operate in. There's also the
And that is
in that, like everything is like very amped up on an effect of the belief system in itself. Yeah.
That's why I believe anybody can do what I do, and they suspend their belief the same way they would do to go watch a cowboy movie or something, some action movie that's impossible. And they enjoy it. If you can enjoy watching a Marvel superheroes movie that is total suspension of belief in all directions, you can do what I do.
Yeah.
It's a matter of discipline. And knowing what your suspension of belief is. That I am a limited being. I'm not a limited being. I am unlimited. I have been healed.
Okay, like say we've talked about suspension of belief and fear and stuff. What about truth versus propaganda?
Okay.
So say that brings
cool.
you. Sorry to trigger you so quick, but that brings you in, because say the information you offer is in itself an avenue for potential suspension of belief with individuals, because I have this chat all the time to people, and I'm saying, like, even at my work, like, I say I'm making videos for this guy, and it's like his information is like tuning into the Akashic record and the data in the earth of the actual history, but it's so vastly, amazingly beyond what we're sort of told. It's people have a sort of a default back to the reality because it suspends their beliefs essentially. So yeah, it's like I'll button my lip up there, and give you a chance to speak, but it's like your information suspends beliefs potentially.
All right. So to do this effectively, type into chat the question.
Okay. I'm just going to mute for a sec. Okay. I just muted and made myself quiet for that, so you didn't get thunder tight.
Good. All right. So I am a presenter. That is the first suspension of belief. Anytime anybody comes to anybody for information other than themselves, it's a suspension of your own belief. that you are more than you've heard, read, or studied. So Andrew, as a suspension of belief, has the potentials to suspend those individuals' beliefs who make up the audience relative to truth and history. That is defining signature frequency teaching. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What do you say, sacred neutral, observer and witness, relative to this suspension of potentials? When I suspend my potentials, my own belief that I can't do this, or I engage my beliefs I can, I share my potentials with those in the suspension of their own belief.
Because like you offer, you're a presenter. And the question I asked was, your information, Andrew, has the potential to suspend those suspend those individuals who make up the audience relative to truth and history. What do you say relative to this suspension of potential beliefs? So you offering yourself, I mean, the question I had as well, expanding that, like you as an individual presenter, there's a common thread throughout, relatively longer periods of people that have a perception of reality versus the chorus of, say, scientific sort of archaeology and all those sort of accepted memes to offer information to a vast level of people. There's this effort to actually not allow intuitive perceptions to be a potential,
A potential or a validated experience, meaning they must come to it in suspension of belief, which makes them a signature frequency match for my infinite potential. Now you're understanding some of the mechanics of how the Wheel of Collars works.
Yeah. But like, say, going back to my analogy of like from birth to 7 years old is the data collection. Like for an individual that might be like in their 50s or 60s now, like that concept of an intuitive psychic sort of teacher not being valid at all relative to the chorus of the reality, so to speak.
So
it's
another layer.
It's just like it's a default that you need to suspend your beliefs to actually integrate that information, where others are just blindly accepted as.
Thank you. You took the words right out of my mouth, and there's one little nugget to add to that. So are those that come to readings not believing in absolutely anything until I do something mystical, and instantly there's in suspension of all beliefs right away? And you can hear probably hundreds of reading examples. Yeah, or the ones that are already in suspension of belief, and then I start getting confirmation after confirmation, which triggers a body alchemical response like tearing, crying, happiness, joy. Holy shit! Wow!
Yeah, but like from, say, my journey, all right, and I'm using me as a metaphor. I went through all this life, and I got into debt, and I got into all these traps of the reality, and it took me going bankrupt and smashed in the reality to actually allow myself that suspension of belief of there's other information. And I had the planting of the seeds, like say 3X files and all that sort of stuff, but it took me to go on that journey of hardship to actually get to that place of actually accepting that there's more out there than we're read, told, or being like had to study. It's fascinating. It takes that grueling sort of like meat grinding in the ascension machine, so to speak, and the reality to get to that point. And like it's fascinating. Obviously there's a lot of people that go on their individual journeys, and there's purpose to actually eliminate the doubt. But yeah.
All right, so here's another little nugget layer. How many layers of suspension of belief do you think there are as the top? Just how many layers of suspension of belief do you think there really are?
Probably my perception is like the tip of the iceberg.
It is. There are certain subject matters in when you get into suspension of belief that take like 70% of the belief energy and give it back to yourself. So there are a few things in the rungs of rites of passage where you go 1, 2, 3, 4. Once your suspension of belief is engaged in your theta state, meaning whatever is being done is put you into a theta state, and then you begin to touch delta, which is actual dreaming frequency. And even though you're awake and fully active with dopamine and adrenal glands, you begin an REM process while you're awake. Your eyes start darting around and you become more aware, and more data is increased in this cerebral cortex. As more data is created by the brain alone attempting to ground itself in the suspension of belief, to continue the awe-inspiring experience.
Yes.
It is where the dynamo of placebo belief system allows the awakening being to stay awakening for a day, week, month, or a year.
And I personally, I associate that with like meditation, and like you don't have to get to like being able to live in that state. The key is to just keep working and say gain that brainwave pattern state for a glimpse to actually realize, like, it's like, say, in the Matrix movies, in the third one where they briefly get above the clouds and see there is actually a sun. You know, it's just get that first reference of an experience, and then once you get that reference, you build upon it. You don't have to be living it every day just to get that gap in this instance, suspension of beliefs, to actually believe, like, not believe, but actually have a reference of truth from an experience.
As a signature frequency match, I can pass on the essence of experience even through placebo belief.
Yeah.
And that is the new dream of unity teaching, passing on the essence of belief. So in the mechanics of a reading, let's say I have somebody that's a regular listener and they've already, listened to a bunch of stuff, and they come for their first show. Their first suspension of belief is, oh my God, I made it through. What does that mean? What does that mean? All the little triggers that come with it. And then they ask me, how did you find out about me? Because I make that a regular process. They have a story ready. And then I go into saying there's a Galactic record of 20,000 worlds open to you. That then suspends another belief that they are only limited to this reality.
Yeah.
Okay? And each confirmation statement I go through suspends a belief until I get to their core soul family process. Even if it's one word that makes no sense to the other thing, for me, that is where they go from, suspension of belief at like 30% suspension and the parasympathetic still has control, to 99 or 100% suspension of belief. And as a parasympathetic and sympathetic, the I am has enough power with me in connection to reprogram it through I am technology training, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Literally live reprogramming.
Yeah, like it's interesting you actually explain it that way, because the thing for me and I just do it in simple words, and my perception is that, say, like, I've known you since 2013 and stuff, and there were times in April that you had no callers, and I was like trying to rustle up the herd of people I knew, so to speak, and get them to have their own unique signature frequency experience with you, because I knew like listening to you, like from an outsider perspective, was really cool, because that a layer of the suspension of beliefs is in itself very powerful, but actually having the pure focused experience of being in, say, your field with you're tuning into their Akashic history and offering a soul truth and hearing that in all that, because I know that has a massive shift of the individual. And I was doing it in a neutral perspective, because I was putting on a plate just saying, look, here it is, choose, and I can help you get Skype set up, I can help you get in, I know how to. The timing is like 2 a.m, you might actually have to get up and actually compromise your comforts a bit, and it's like, but I could perceive like that power of actually choosing to actually will use this sort of thing, suspend their own beliefs to have that gap. But this is like also goes to the mystical event, like being in the event, because it's like, yeah, being in that group situation and listening to your teachings that you did, like actually are a metaphor for suspending their beliefs, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's always fascinating how people find, their own avenues, and I was like really observing people and the ones that chose and the ones that chose not to, you know.
Mm-hmm. So there's one more thing on suspension. Actually, there's always one more thing on suspension of belief. But once you get to that 90% suspension of belief, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic are so disempowered in a positive way that you can then begin advanced soul surgery and really kind of tell them how to do it themselves. So in a reading, when I would transit over to doing medical, like right away, that's the signature frequency that the sympathetic and parasympathetic needed to let down, because if the person dies, the parasympathetic dies, and it knows that.
Yeah.
So when you give spiritual detox as the same information as physical detox, the parasympathetic doesn't understand that part. And so those people that went through advanced spiritual detox using their colon cleanses and contract revocations, they gained more than they could gain this lifetime in their dream potential, because they suddenly had the language to once again unlimit themselves. Maybe not fully, but at least loosen the belt that was around them.
Yeah. Yeah, because you've actually got to choose your fate, so to speak. You can't be codependent on someone else doing it for you. You actually have to dust your butt off and get out there, you know, get into it and do it yourself.
That's right. Do it yourself, quite literally. Not be afraid of it. Not allow your self-defeatist attitudes to take over.
So, I mean, like, okay, this is probably like rounding out this sort of chat on the suspension of beliefs. Like, say if I share this publicly, like a recording, you can perceive the whole audience as a whole in all time sort of thing that might hear this. Are there certain common avenues that people that might hear this out of that might be a good sort of general sort of...
Yes, very good round off. So anyone that is listening to the potential future, what I'd like for you to do as a tool, tip, or technique to take back to yourself is every time you play a video game or watch somebody else play a video game, TV series, music, anything on the internet, anything that's presented to you that isn't live, you physically cannot touch, look at your suspension of belief. What are the 2 or 3 most obvious things you are allowing yourself to do to engage that form of entertainment or whatever it is? From that, you will discover there are a common set of things you do to suspend belief, to allow emotions. There are times we make choices on what we want, because when we suspend our belief and the show that's coming in gives us information, gives us joy, gives us something. When the show ends, when your beliefs go back up, look inside. What did it actually show to you? What did it actually teach? What did it gratify? Was it an instant gratification, 30-minute show, hour show, or was it something that drove the intelligent you to comprehend the story concepts? And that is what attracted you to suspend your belief.
Beautiful.
What engages genius in suspension of belief? And then when you go to your meditation, you have to see your meditation just like the television. Can you suspend your belief in yourself to have a meditation that has the same quality of mental visual acuity as watching a TV show in your own meditative experience?
Yeah, so it's like I could sort of see how, like, I use that metaphor of like the thing I was passionate about, and it was in like my own naivety that I was doing it. But then if I actually suspend the belief that I am actually worthy or not worthy of a mystical sort of experience, if I actually suspend that and focus it in an intent, like say doing a meditation group or going to a healing and allowing myself to release that block, then
Right.
Yeah.
A suspension of belief without an expectation of gratification. That's the mechanic. That's the equational mechanic.
yeah.
That's deep theta that touches to delta, and all of a sudden you're having REM. Your eyes are, increasing the amount of data that are going, and you're engaging your genius at that point because you're awake delta.
Yeah.
Which, the government and science knows all about that stuff.
Absolutely. But the thing is, like using sort of the games or the movies as a way to recognize that you actually do it, but you're not realizing you do it. So if you can actually realize you actually have the power to do it, then what can you do with that self-realization from then on?
For all those people that play first-person shooter games, it should be very easy for you to spiritually travel places, because that's what those games are intended to do, imprint a skill into you that will be negatively used against you in some other format. But if you retask that skill from the video game and put it to your meditative process, guess what? You have a very valuable skill.
So say you could actually, from like playing a video game, you could actually focus that into somewhere that you've actually been.
Correct. Retasking skills.
Yeah, so you're familiar with the environment, so you know where you can actually focus that visual sort of reference,
Right.
and then you can actually do it from then on to areas that you haven't been. And then you can actually go to them after and have a confirmation sort of visit. I got this like 60% right. There was this thing I didn't realize what it was, but now I see it. It's obvious,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So another thing in suspension of belief, you can, anybody listening to this future, it's like when you go to take a test when you were in high school and you didn't know if you were going to pass it, and you get into the thick, you engage your genius, and at the end you have doubt. So when you come back with a grade higher than you expected, that shows you the belief in yourself and the level of suspension of disbelief. Suspension of belief. Sorry. Tongue twister there.
Yeah. But it's that self-imposed belief that you've got to separate yourself from to actually get to the separation of like the
brings us into separation of densities.
Yeah.
As a teaching in general, that the signature frequency teachers and density signature frequency teachers are now emanating energy to attract density signature frequency matches. And those that are not are going to be repelled by that energy of the law of the attraction and repelling, because they are not a match anymore. Though they can be a match in what's called the second degree of separation through observation, remote observation. So it puts people... Go ahead.
Yeah, for me, like in that instance of a test, it's like, where do you get those default sort of things from that you aren't worthy and you're not good enough? Those beliefs where if you can have the courage to actually
believe in yourself.
Like my healer Kevin calls them misguided thought patterns. You're self-imposing limits on yourself, and you actually have to go to the effort of suspending your beliefs to actually get to the clarity of releasing them and moving on to reveal your potential. It's just fascinating, like the things that we do automatically that we don't realize we do to feed the reality,
Right. And again, that's why I say anyone can do what I can do. Anyone. I made a choice to follow through with it as a skill. The next is one suspension of belief. It's teaching. What level of disbelief are you going to use? The suspension of belief are you going to use every day? And at what level are you going to make suspension of belief your form of impact into the world? Many people that become rebels are actually trying to do suspension of belief, but they manifest too much on the seen side and not on the unseen side of their belief.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. They're trying to express themselves, but they haven't gone totally within to realize why they actually want to express themselves in that way.
That's right.
Because the society has suspended their belief on the fact that they can go internal.
That's right. Because they need a priest class to make a moment sacred.
So a lot of people are feeling that rebel energy, no doubt. And it's like, how do I express it? Well, you actually focus it on your inner development to gain the skill sets to perceive the reality further.
Exactly. So you can take the simple teaching of suspension of belief, the same thing that you do when you watch television or a movie or any of that stuff. You can engage that at work, you can engage that at home, you can engage that anywhere. And when you do it with enough of your suspension of belief and placebo power behind it, just like the movie that scares you, you can make direct manifestation, exchange of energy for the very positive of yourself. But requires just a little bit of strategy and knowing of thyself.
Yeah. So suspend
Preparation, the execution, yeah.
Suspend the belief that you're not worthy.
Mm-hmm. And if you're prepared to suspend your belief, you will depict the execution of suspension of belief.
Because yeah, like the good thing to do is actually identify one thing. Just one thing, like the self-imposed beliefs of your limitation. And then once you get past that one thing, then you've actually got the reference of feeling in your body how it feels to have that technology unlocked. And then what dominoes do you want to topple from then on, you know?
If you cannot suspend your belief that for a moment in time to say, I am the grand master of the obvious of my own reality and the seen and the unseen, there is massive self-worth issues in yourself. We at any point in time should be able to go, what are the top 3 things in my seen and unseen world? And just from the raw creativity know through your intuitive gut.
Yep. I offered this on my journey, mate. Like the real, like, once I really got an understanding that there was a lot out there, it came by Danny Brinkley's book, Saved by the Light of the Death.
Love the book. Read it too.
Yeah. And then the first thing I actually did was I actually went to a past life regressionist and had an experience in that way. Because past life regressionists are all out there, you know, all over the place. And whether or not they're right or wrong or whatever, just to have an experience with someone in that state, you know, it actually opens up a lot. You know, it's a gentle way of getting more personal information, you know. That doesn't have to be via you or anyone. It could be the person might have been you've run into 3 or 4 times, you know, and it's like, oh, holy crap, you're a regressionist? Cool. You know, like, let's go and have an experience, you know.
Yep. The power of belief.
Because, I mean, like, when me and I did that, it just, like, dominoes went, like, got kicked out of my belief system, you know, because it was like, okay, so I read this book and he talks about how he had a near-death experience and it totally rocked his belief systems. Because he was a sniper in Vietnam and he killed people and he like felt the consequence of killing, you know, and he came back and he's like, I'll be good. But it shifted him on such a foundational level, you know.
I enjoy the book a lot.
I think
it's tough.
He's done his work.
It's tough.
He's done his part.
Yeah, he's done it. He's done his part. He's been to, what, 25, 30 years in the industry? I'm suspending all belief. Tough.
But yeah, that's a good chat, mate. Don't want to make it too long, but it's like, as soon as you mentioned it, I actually got it, and I was like, holy crap, you can actually, like, I wrote that down straight away. It's like, notebook.
Nugget. Just give your belief a wedgie and suspend it on a hook. Walk away.
Put the brakes on the belief train, you know?
Just put your brakes on the belief train.
It's like you're a passenger on the train of belief, you know? Like, this journey has no purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it does.
So
It does have purpose, but it's like, do you want to go see another place instead of going around the same track all the time, you know?